Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Dona Kappmeyer, and I'm the CEO and firm owner of Capital Game Plan Consulting and Action Coach in South Texas. And I'm going to be your host for today. I am very excited to have our special guest, Mark Olson, on our show. Mark is the president and CEO of LTO Ventures in Boerne, Texas. And today we're going to speak with Mark about his journey to get to where he's at and the challenges and successes of owning and operating a business. If this is your first time on our channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can get our new content. And well, Mark, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited that you're here, and let's go ahead and get started. So,
Mhm.
one of the things I like to open up with is kind of talk a little bit about your business. And let's start off by
Mhm.
talking about how your business is structured.
Sure. We're a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, incorporated in the state of Texas.
Very good. And as a nonprofit, let's talk a little bit more about your business. What exactly is LTO Ventures?
Sure. So we do three fundamental things. First and foremost, we are developing our own intentional residential community for adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities in Boerne. Second is, and where we spend a lot of our time, we provide paid consulting and project management services to nonprofits around the country to help them build their intentional residential communities. We've done 18 projects in 10 states to date. And then the third leg of the stool, if you will, for our business is advocacy. So we do a lot of advocacy work at a local, state, and federal level. Um, we had our last biggest achievement was significantly changing regulations and administrative code in the state of Texas in 2022, and then before that, at a federal level, significantly impacting what they call the final settings rule. So those are three pieces of our business.
So that's a whole lot to unpack. So let's start off with how did you even get started in this business?
Sure. If you remember the recession in sort of 2006, 2008, I was working with a financial services company in Las Vegas, and one thing led to another with that, sort of out of my control, but it led me at that point, and I was a single parent at that time,
Okay.
to think about, to really come and answer the question my friends were asking me, which is what's going to happen to your daughter when you're not around anymore, right? So my daughter Lindsay, and she's the LTO and LTO Ventures,
Nice.
um, was, oh my gosh, how many years ago was that? That's a lot of years ago. So she's like 11 or something. Um, and I'm an only parent. And so the question is, what's going to happen to her when you're not around? And I thought, well, you know, um, I've made billions of dollars for other companies as a marketing consultant, and maybe it's time I give back. Maybe it's time I create a future for her. And the more I got into that and researched that, the more I saw the size of the need for that and thought that that just seemed like something I really wanted to devote the rest of my life to. And so that's how I jumped into that.
So that's a big undertaking. So how old was she when you kind of were posed with that question?
I want to say like 11 or 12, because it was 2007. So it's 20, 12. Yeah, not quite 12 yet. And yeah, it's she and I were, we had a little apartment in Henderson, Nevada, and I'm not going to live forever. Even though when my friends would ask me what's going to happen to your daughter when you're not around anymore, my first response was always, I'm immortal. But I realized you got to have a plan B, right? So I had to develop a plan B, and came to find out that she's not the only one with this need. There's more than 8 million adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities in the U.S., and only 16% of them live in a home of their own. 75% of them still live with their family members. So that just looked like a huge need, and I helped some of the largest corporations in the world to be successful. And I just thought that was something that just looked like a fun challenge. And if I could find a way to make a living out of it, even better.
Wow. So that point in time really set the stage for the rest of your life and the rest of your legacy, and has evolved
Mhm.
really because you continue to grow into different areas. Um, as time has moved on, and you found yourself in different areas as time has moved on to the point of even doing
Yeah, yeah.
advocacy.
Yeah, the nature of what we do has significantly evolved over time, kind of with the market also, because a lot of parents are asking themselves the same questions, and a lot of parents are forming groups and building housing or coming to me and asking me to help them build housing. And so it's just been a really interesting time, and uh, it's a market that will be there, well past my final days. So I'm not worried about having anything to do.
So, are you finding people coming to you? No, I mean, this kind of was that aha moment for you when she was young. Are people coming to you late in life? Are they coming to you early? What does that look like as far as the
Yeah.
landscape of your market, if you will?
Yeah, it's interesting. It tends to be earlier, right? So parents go through most parents of adults with, and we're going to use IDD for short. That's intellectual or developmental disability.
Okay.
IDD is much easier to say. And within IDD is autism and intellectual disability and a variety of other disabilities that are chronic and lifelong. Uh, they're when your kids come up through school, they hit 14 and then they hit 18, and so that's the end of the regular school system. And under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, they have a right to stay in school till they're what we call 22 years minus a day. And then after that, there's nothing.
Really?
So there are lots of parents who get to 18 and they kind of look around and they're like, holy cow, like we better start planning something. We better figure this out. And so I get a lot of inquiries from groups that are younger individuals, somewhere between 18 to 25. And they've realized this need and they've kind of all gathered around a dining room table or a Starbucks and said, hey, we should do something. That sounds great. Here, I downloaded the form to become a nonprofit and I found this conference and I found this. And then they get a few months into it and then they just kind of go, and I call it reaching the base of the mountain, right? They just get there and go, holy cow, there's so much to do, and I don't know where to begin. And I have a full-time job, and my kid takes up all the rest of my time. Like, I don't have time to do this. Like, who can help, right? And so that's where I get a lot of contacts. There are parents who find me, or they find projects we've done, and then those people recommend them to me, and then I ask them to tell them, what's your story? Tell me your vision.
So, are these people who are looking to do the same thing that you're doing, or they're looking to get their child into something like this, or
Um,
both?
uh, yeah, it's actually so nobody's trying to get into consulting, um, but they all want to build a residential community where their son or daughter can be safe for the rest of their natural lives, right? So,
Okay.
and so they're now we are building our own community. So in that sense, I'm a peer with them from the building a community standpoint. We just happen to have an expertise in having done this quite a bit and a process and a business model to help them. What we call it the heavy lifting, right? That first 6 to 12 to 18 months of trying to get your project started is overwhelming for most people, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to figure it out. And that's where we come in, where we do the heavy lifting for them. And at some point, if I do it right, I'm training them on how to take over, and then we fade out, right? And then they go run their own project. Um, yeah, no, they're all looking. Everybody wants to know that their son or daughter is going to end up in a safe and secure residential setting where they're going to have all the same opportunities, experiences, and outcomes as individuals who don't have disabilities. And that's what we try to create.
Is there a lot of competition in this space, or a lot of people? I don't know if competition's the right word. There are a lot of people in this space doing the same thing that you're doing.
So, from the building a residential community standpoint, there's more than 300 intentional communities existing around the country right now. There's more than 50 in development at any given time. From a consulting standpoint, um, I have a bunch of peers in this business, most of them are people who have built their own communities and now are offering, because the second you get something built, and I tell this to every one of our projects, I said, you're going to spend half to three quarters of your time giving tours and sharing information about how you did it, right? And some of the people who've developed these projects are, well, first of all, they're all great friends of mine, and they're amazing people, have um, become more organized in how they provide those services. There's a gentleman in Florida who will jump on a plane to help you, whatever, testify in front of a city council. There's a gentleman in California who will help you, with the deep dive in your pro formas. They've all solved the problem in different ways and built amazing communities. And so what I really love about this space right now is there are so many incredibly smart people doing incredibly creative things, and they're willing to share all their work with anybody else who wants to get into this. And so it's not uncommon for me to reach out to a friend and go, "Hey, I need I need to see your P&L for the last year, and what I really need is I need a breakdown of your, what you're paying your employees and what your, experience, because I need to build that into a spreadsheet for a project. Um, and, it'll get redacted. Next thing you know, it's in my email, right? Or I need to see a copy, would you be willing to share your policies and procedures for the following thing? And boom, and now I've got a folder of those. So, um, and I like to think that, I give back as much as that. I'll share stuff with with pretty much anybody who comes and asks for, a bit of help. And because at the end of the day, all of us doing this right now, if we did 10 times more, we can't even scratch the surface, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, we just need to keep. I chaired a panel at a conference, God, I want to say it's 2013, and 350 people in the room. And my instruction to them was go build whatever it is you're thinking about doing. Just go do it, because we can't build fast enough. We can't build big enough. You can't have real choice without real options. And so we need to have all these different ideas in every place in the country so that families they can find something that's a great fit for their son or daughter.
Love that. So I have a question about like funding, right? So this costs
Yeah.
money. Where does the funding? Is this private? Is it government? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, uh, it can come from a lot of different places, right? Now we have chosen as a business not to be in the government funding business, right?
Okay.
So and now mind you, there are some great projects around the country that have used things like low income housing tax credits to build their projects. I could name a half a dozen right off the top of my head who've done that. And I could tell you all the reasons why they wish they hadn't done it now that they've, lived with that experience. But they did it. Um, New market tax credits. We also try to avoid debt. We really want to open and be debt free and free of government strings. So that's on the construction and operation side.
Okay.
The other piece of this that's important is when a young man or young woman comes to live in one of these communities and they need supports to be able to live as independently as possible, right? Somebody who's going to, and that ranges it's an infinite range. Um, they may need 24/7, 365, they may need a wake staff in their, apartment to help them with grooming and bathing and feeding and cleaning and all sorts of things because they have very high support needs.
Mm-hmm.
Some have very low support needs. They just need somebody to drop in hour a day, 2 or 3 hours a week, just make sure there's no bad food in the fridge and that, laundry's getting done and the house is getting cleaned, things like that. Those supports are often paid with what's called a home and community based waiver. It's a Medicaid waiver.
Okay.
Um, the basic structure of Medicaid waivers is established by the federal government, by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. And then each state takes that floor and creates waivers to address needs in their state, right? So, for example, Texas has 7 waivers. Indiana has 2. Um, Wisconsin has three. And so they just address it differently. So though that is government funding, it's a federal state match.
Hmm.
It pays for supports and services. It's dreadfully underfunded by every single state in the country. Um, and so when we're putting together business models for our clients, it depends on what state they're in. For example, we've done two projects in Indiana, and Indiana is one of the worst states when it comes to providing these supports. We're doing three projects in Wisconsin, one of the best states for providing these supports. So, we just we're really shaping the project to the founder's vision and then finding the pieces that are going to make that possible, right? So we might use
Okay.
more or less waivers. We're doing a project in Houston right now, which is 100% private pay. They don't even want to
Wow.
deal with the government. Nut they're going to have to come up with.
I think we're going to restate that because we lost internet
Mhm.
connection for a minute.
Yep, I just
So,
got the unstable message. Yeah.
so if you want to start over, you said talk about restart about Houston. We're dealing
Yeah.
with a project in Houston.
Yeah, so we're doing a project in Houston, established entity. They've got land already, and they want to be 100% private pay. They don't want to deal with waivers at all. They don't want to deal with the government at all when it comes to that. And so we're shaping a model for that now for the families whose sons or daughters are going to be there. That's going to be 30, 40, $50,000 a year for every year of their son or daughter's life to be able to do that. And so kind of limit your market a little bit. But Houston is the third or fourth largest city in the United States. There are at least 60 families who can fill that building. So you look at each project and you build out the model to make it work.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about hurdles. You've been doing this for quite a while.
Mhm.
What are some of the, top one or two or three memorable hurdles that you've had to overcome since you've been in this business?
The thing that we're actually experiencing this with our own project right now. So number one is funding. It's always funding, right? We're always looking for money. Doesn't matter what project, but we're looking for money all the time, right? We're a nonprofit. Um, uh, I don't want to use debt. I don't want to use government funding. We want to make it affordable for the families, and so we're always pursuing it from that perspective. Land is a challenge. So I can think of including our own project right now. Finding land that's a good place, that's a good fit, that's buildable, that's affordable, is a challenge, and that's become an even bigger challenge post-COVID. Like pre-COVID, not such a big deal. We were
Hmm.
looking for land in Arizona for a project during COVID, and it was like every day everything went up 25%. And then the next
Wow.
day go up 25 more percent. It was crazy. And nothing's coming down, right? So, and then state regulations. The federal regulations, we've pretty much figured out. The state regulations, because they have the right to take the federal sort of minimum and they can add restrictions on top of it. Indiana, Pennsylvania are very restrictive. So it's working with those restrictions.
Crazy. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah. Prices aren't coming down. And they're not making any more land, I guess, depending on where you're at.
No, and
Um,
everybody's in competition for it, right? If you're in a place where
yeah.
people want to live, we're in Bernie, right? So they widened I-10 from San Antonio out to Bernie, from 4 to 10 lanes, and every developer on the planet said, well, now Bernie's the bedroom community for San Antonio. So they've been snapping up huge parcels of land. So I'm in competition with the biggest home builders in the country for land.
My goodness. So let's talk about future state. You got a challenge with that. Where do you see this, your business and the industry going in the next 3 to 5 years? What does that look like?
Yeah. Um, I have this giant caveat that I tell people. I said nothing I say is political, but I am reality based, right? So we are seeing some uncertainty in the space given the uncertainties coming out of Washington. So we're having to sort of address that. um, uh, you know, tariffs, like
Mhm.
the three most important things that go into building your community besides land are concrete, wood, and steel. Um, they all come from Mexico and Canada, and so when price the cost of a project can go up $1 million overnight, and so there's that. Also, uncertainty. People put their wallets back in their pockets. And
Mhm.
so fundraising becomes a little bit more challenging, right? So uh, I would say, we are in competition for fundraising with organizations that are providing safe housing for abused women and children, and food, for individuals who don't have food, and housing for people who don't have housing. We don't have any of those dire needs in our business. We're thinking more sort of long-term quality of life, where these individuals are going to go before their parents pass away. And so the priority of fundraising from groups right now, as they pull back, is toward, dire need. And then, of course, this summer, we had the floods up here.
Yeah.
And so, the Community Foundation of the Hill Country raised $120 million in a month to address
Wow.
that. Well, that's $120 million in charitable funding that got sucked out of the rest of the space for the rest of us, put toward an absolutely essential need. I have no problem with that. And the Community Foundation is an amazing organization. Okay, so now they don't have that money. We have to wait till the next year, until they do have that money. So um, where we want to be in 3 to 5 years, obviously more projects. We're um, uh, we definitely want to keep that piece of our business going. Very much want to acquire land and get our project going. So our project is called Autumn Hills Village, and what we want to get going initially is a day program. We did a community survey, and there's a lack of a really innovative day program up here. So we want to get that going,
Okay.
so individuals have a place to spend the day. Um, It's also a lot cheaper than buying land and building buildings, and so you can get that up and going quicker. We want to get some educational programming up and going, and then get our land and start building our project, right? So we've got housing as a big piece of our project, and then a community enrichment center is another big piece. So those are. I'd really like to be really far along with that in 5 years. I would actually like people to be living in our housing in 5 years. So we'll see how that goes.
Love that. What is one thing that you wish people knew more about what you do or the industry that you're in?
Um, I have this, at the risk of sounding dramatic, um, adults with IDD are invisible. They're just invisible. They're invisible to the legislature in the state, and they're amazing individuals. Like, I run our Special Olympics delegation here, and I coach three of the sports. Like, come hang out with me while I'm coaching, swimming or bowling or top golf, and spend a couple hours, with my guys and girls. Like, you'll fall in love with all of them because
Oh,
they're amazing souls, right? And they deserve a place to live where they can be happy and safe. And um, that I just, I wish people got to know and accept and sort of be part of their lives.
I love that. And you having said that, what is a way for people to get in contact with you or to learn more about what you do and maybe even, spend the day or spend that time to get to see what this is all about?
Yeah, easiest thing is our website. I put everything on the website. I make it really easy for people to find us. So it's ltoventures.org. And on the contact page, the 702 number is my cell, right? Call my cell. The email on there is my email. You can contact me directly, and people do. And so did the spammers, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, just I'll have a conference. I love hearing the stories. right? I get parents call me up going, I've got a 23-year-old daughter is aging out and been in this and it's like, all right, tell me your story. Tell me about your son or daughter. Tell me about what it is they do. Tell me, what are you thinking? What do you need? Like, how can I help? And and they do. I talk to one or two families every week. I love going to places and conferences and meetings and advocacy groups and getting to hear their stories because everybody's story is different. And so there's no one size fits all, right? We're
Yeah.
we're trying to and everything is hyper personal, right? It's so
Yeah.
funny when we go talk to groups about projects and I go, does anybody have any questions? The questions are hyper personal. Like, I need to know about this specific thing is going to be available and so who's going to handle that? Like, wow, okay. I get it. I'm the same way. I've got two daughters, with, a 21-year-old and a 30-year-old. Lindsay's 30, and they'll never be able to live independently. And so my questions are hyper personal also.
Yeah. My goodness. Well, Mark, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. This
Sure.
has been very hyper personal and very inspirational, and I know that our audience is going to find it. So, this is a Business Spotlight series with Dona Kappmeyer from Capital Game Plan Consulting and Mark Olson from LTO Ventures. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can continue to see our great content. I'm going to read this over again because I don't like the way we're ending here. This is the Business Spotlight series with Dona Kappmeyer from Capital Game Plan Consulting, along with Mark Olson from LTO Ventures. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can continue to see our great content. Thank you for being with us, Mark. This has been phenomenal.
No, Don, thank you so much. I love telling our story and you've got a great platform for it. So thank you for making me a part of it.
You are welcome. Bye for now.